The Solidarity Fund, which was set up to raise money for COVID-19, has received 3.2 billion rand in pledges so far. It was started by President Cyril Ramaphosa last year. The fund administrators are now considering spending some of the money on technical support for the vaccine rollout. Let's get more on this. I'm joined by Solidarity Fund Deputy Chair Adrian Entwerff, and thank you very much for your time this afternoon. So, Adrian, 150 million rand was donated by government as seed capital initially, but where are the majority of the remaining donations coming from?
So, I think it's important for your viewers to know that, the Solidarity Fund, although it was set up by the President, is an independent entity. I mean, we work very closely with government, very closely with business, but we independently governed and operate independently. We raise money from the public and from corporates. We had over 300,000 individual South Africans donate money to us, over 2,700 companies and foundations that made up the 3.2 billion rand that you talk about.
And you've also received a significant amount from international donors, is that correct?
Yes, we received a significant amount from the British government, in particular to support our gender-based violence campaigns, but also from a number of multinational companies.
Are you still seeing a steady stream of donations to assist with work going on, or have things slowed down somewhat?
Things slowed down very significantly after the first few months of the crisis, but we are now in a position where we're looking to raise additional money to help support in our funding of some of the key elements in the vaccine rollout program. We're positioning ourselves to support the National Department of Health as they roll out the vaccines.
So the Solidarity Fund made a sizable contribution towards the deposit for vaccine doses from the COVAX program, but that doesn't mean you're a part of the rollout campaign per se. Tell us about the parameters of your involvement.
So I think it's very important to note that when the Solidarity Fund was set up, we were really clear that there needed to be one national health strategy and health response, and that had to be led by national government. So the idea was not that the Solidarity Fund would have our own health response, but that we would augment and support and try our best to kind of, support in the best way that we can the National Department of Health's response. When it comes to vaccines, it's very clear, the government's made it clear that they will be funding and procuring all the vaccines, but they're looking for support from the private sector and from the Solidarity Fund in some key areas to help with the support of the implementation of the vaccine program. I mean, this is going to be a very significant program, completely unprecedented in our history to vaccinate this number of people in this amount of time. It's going to require all sectors of society to come together, and the Solidarity Fund is looking at what role we can play. Already, we have made a contribution to the rollout of the J&J vaccines to healthcare workers, the 500,000 healthcare workers. We're also looking to support the setting up of implementation capacity and inside the National Department of Health, the provincial departments and the districts to create the capacity inside the state to implement and oversee the execution of this program.
So of that 3.2 billion rand, how much money has been set aside from the contribution towards COVAX, apart from the contribution to COVAX? How much other money has been spent and where has it gone?
So we have allocated or committed 2.76 of the 3.22 billion rand. We've actually dispersed 2.18 billion of that, and that has been in some 40 projects and sub-projects. So there's been a huge amount of effort. Most of that money has gone into our health response. We spent 2.23 billion rand, and that has gone on almost 1 billion rand on PPE, supporting the national testing program, the national health laboratory services, the local manufacturing and we procured locally manufactured ventilators, CPAP ventilator machines, essential medical equipment, and obviously, as you mentioned, the vaccine. So the bulk of our effort and resource has gone into supporting the national health effort, but we've also spent 414 million rand on food security, on food vouchers for small-scale farmers, and we're currently involved in a program with over 300 community-based and local organizations across the country who are dealing with gender-based violence. So we've had a very big focus and effort to try to address the crisis of gender-based violence. And then we've also spent 175 million rand on our behavioral change campaign. And we know that behavioral change and vaccines are our two weapons against COVID-19. And so, we've been very active in the last year on radio, TV, but also with partners in the churches, in civil society, traditional leaders, businesses, schools, to try to make sure we're driving the right kind of behaviors to keep infections under control.
Amidst a culture of corruption, oversight and reporting are so important. Donors and the public always want to know that recipients are legitimate and deserving. What processes do you have in place to make sure that the fund is impervious to being taken advantage of, and for the public to openly access documents and records?
So firstly, I mean, we've been committed to, complete transparency from the beginning, that every cent that we get will be properly accounted for and where that money came from, and every cent that we spend will be properly accounted for. And we're a fund for all of South Africa, and we're accountable to all of South Africa. And if you go onto our website, you'll see there's lists of all the donors that we've received money from and how much we've received from them. Obviously not the very small donors, but all the larger donors. We now have over 300 pages of documentation that cover each of the projects that we have been involved in, and where all the money's gone, who the parties are that we contracted, and how much money went to each of these parties, what is the impact we believe we've had with the funds. I mean, some of those reports are still being prepared, but we're very large. We're probably 3/4 of the way there around all the projects that we've committed to, but obviously some are still in process. In relation to our processes, I mean, we have very strict, strong governance processes. I mean, I sit on the board of a number of private sector companies. I mean, the governance that that we have at the fund is absolutely of the kind of highest standards, and the separation of authorities between the executive and the board. The board meets since the beginning, has met on either a weekly basis or every second week. All disbursements are considered by the disbursement subcommittee of the board, made from recommendations from the executive, but also with reference to an independent panel who can kind of assess that. And then in the execution, we make sure that every single recipient of a contract from the fund, that there's a proper due diligence, and that we are comfortable that there are no issues of conflicts or issues that may arise that could cause issues in relation to the kind of misappropriation of the funds. So we've been extremely diligent on that. I mean, we take the responsibility of managing all of these funds on behalf of South Africa extremely seriously, and we're very happy to date there have been no issues or no reports of any corruption whatsoever at the Solidarity Fund.
Well, thank you very much for that diligence and for the incredible work that you continue to do. Solidarity Fund Deputy Chair Adrian Entwerfen.